Well, he joins us now in studio just to give us a little bit more about the day's proceeding. Khaya, always good to have you on the programme. So what can you tell us about what else came out as our president hosted his counterpart from Côte d'Ivoire, Alassane Ouattara?
Well, undoubtedly, Peter, the issue around trade and really making sure that the economic ties are being fortified, that was a very central issue, especially because we're coming out of COVID-19. Both economies really took a knock. As much as Côte d'Ivoire, really, how they managed the situation, they're not really affected because, you know, when you look at the economy, as much as they recorded some losses, but they're not really terribly affected. So hence we're lauded, for example, by the likes of IMF. So issue around defense as well, something that is very critical in that country, Peter. We do know that from time to time, Côte d'Ivoire, where it's located in West Africa, in fact, their foreign affairs minister Camara was describing that as much as it's quite calm now, but they're worried that they're surrounded by Burkina Faso. We've seen a number of incidents of terrorism and stuff. So that's a major challenge that they are facing. But now they have this institution, a counter-terrorism institution. They're also working alongside with their South African counterparts to really try and find more counter-terrorism measures and strategies.
All right. Well, tell us a little about some of the agreements that were signed.
Well, quite a lot, Peter, because obviously, I mean, this was a reciprocal visit. To go back to December last year when President Ramaphosa had that West African tour where he was going to these strategic West African countries. This is the third largest economy in West Africa. You look at areas around transport. So there was a memorandum of understanding that was signed by two ministers, Khayelihle Khumalo in South Africa and his counterpart from Côte d'Ivoire. Issues around social as well, social impact. We know that poverty eradication is quite important. You know, when you look at the priorities of Côte d'Ivoire, they also do have a developmental plan where they're looking at a number of socio-economic issues. Poverty is one of the main issues that they are trying to tackle, but also wildlife. We know that Côte d'Ivoire, when it comes to water and many other things, you know, they're quite well endowed in all these natural resources. So there was an MOU that was signed to that effect as well.
All right. Did he talk about the peace situation in his country? Because this is a country that literally was at war with itself not so long ago, and there were questions and rumblings about Ouattara carrying on as president.
Well, that's right, Peter, especially because recently President Ouattara reached out to his predecessor, President Babo, trying to just reach out and understand how they're feeling, especially because the country will be going to the elections in 2025. And from time to time, you do have these sporadic incidents where, you know, the rivals, political rivals, will have all these skirmishes. So he said he was going there to consult, to try and get their experiences so that they try and avert, so that there's stable peace in Côte d'Ivoire, because they say economic stability is very important. So without peace, it's a pipe dream. When you talk about continental free trade area, if your country's caught up in a war, you won't benefit anything. So that was very clear from what they were threshing out.
What else came out? Okay.
Well, quite a lot of things. I mean, so he was very elated, Peter. I mean, he got one of their prestigious orders as one of the heads of states, promoting the warm relations between the two countries. And you could really see, you know, the cheerfulness. And he really had to break the tradition coming from a French-speaking country where he had to speak English, really expressing his gratitude about having the opportunity to come to South Africa. But we do know on Saturday, he'll be going to the Robben Island, to the cell where Nelson Mandela was incarcerated. So it's quite a very nostalgic moment for him, because he said, well, it's not my first time in South Africa, but it is my first time where I'm given the pomp and ceremony, the 21 gun salute and all kinds of things. So it was an incredibly moving day, because also, Peter, he came with a very massive delegation. So you can really see that hunger that they really want these business opportunities. Already you do have the likes of MTN, MultiChoice, doing some tremendous work in Côte d'Ivoire. So they really want to see also Ivorian companies coming to our shores.
All right, and talking about trade relations, and there hasn't been enormous trade between the two countries, and I guess this is what they want to boost. But I suppose what that might mean is sort of managing some of the influence that countries like France have always had there, and competing with our products, with French products in Ivorian markets.
I think, Peter, that's always a challenge, especially when you look in the context of West Africa, how some of these former French colonies, there's always this over-reliance to the former colonial power, how they have the currency system that is still pegged against the euro and all sorts of things. So it is indeed a massive challenge. But as soon as they came out of their discussion, President Ramaphosa said they really had a very productive exchange. And after that, there was a business forum where the South African business groupings met with their Ivorian counterparts to try and amplify the importance of reaching out to this market. You're absolutely right. I mean, currently, when you look at the trade volumes between the two countries, it's less than 3 billion rand. So that's a very small figure. But obviously, I mean, it's a myriad of challenges. They're geographically apart and many other issues as well. But it's quite important for them to make sure that all these MOUs that were signed from time to time now, the bureaucrats should really follow up so that they really come to life. But it was quite interesting because President Ouattara was saying 9 MOUs were signed in December last year. The Parliament of Côte d'Ivoire has ratified some of them, making sure that they are given, just taking into effect.
Yeah. We talk about this, the mobile network operators making inroads there. One of the things that I've seen as I've traveled across the continent, South African construction, malls in particular, you start to see them in other parts of the continent. Last time I was in Côte d'Ivoire, I saw very French flavor. Have we started to be seen visibly? Can you... When you walk around Abidjan, is there a sense that South Africa is arriving?
I think obviously, they could do more, Peter, so that they're really well established, especially because, for the longest time, this is a country, you go back to the 60s when they got the independence, a long-time leader was in charge until his death in the 90s, and then you started having a political crisis. So I think for the longest time, there has been this hesitancy from the side of the investors, mainly from South Africa, because when you look at other countries in West Africa, for example, if you're in Accra, you can really see the likes of ShopRite and many other entities. So it is a dream that President Ouattara has, because he says, we are ready for you. And this is a time to make sure that your footprint is well established and, so that it's also mutually beneficial, so that also Ivorians come to South Africa. This is the largest cocoa producer, but also when it comes to the petroleum sector, it's a sector that is slowly developing. It's something we can learn, given the whole fuel crisis that we're seeing in our shores. It's something as well that the two leaders were looking at.
So how's your French?
Parlez-vous français, monsieur?
Je parle un petit peu. Merci. Thanks so much indeed, Khayelihle. And that's where we'll leave the conversation.